Good morning, everyone. Al Fragnoli, Zach Sutty, coming at you guys today. Legal leaders, we've got a great guest joining us today. Dr. Vincent Mumford is a professor at Central Michigan University and director of the sport management program at Central. Dr. Mumford, thanks for joining us today.
Well, I want to thank both of you for inviting me, and it's a great honor, and I look forward to speaking with you.
Awesome. We've got a lot of questions lined up for you. We know you have a ton of experience, so we're going to dive right into the first one here. You've got lots of experience working at universities in a wide variety of roles. You've been a professor for over 30 years. You're currently a professor, as we mentioned, at Central Michigan University and the director of the sport management department. What steered you towards teaching at the college level, and what do you love most about teaching at the university?
Well, that's an interesting question because as a student, you too can remember this. Someone asking you, well, what do you want to do? You remember that question?
Yes.
Well, when I was asked that question, I never said I want to be a college professor. So I always tell students and people in general that your career will change, but what doesn't change is what you're passionate about. So to answer your question is, I've always pursued my passion, and it's taken me to every place that I've gone. I feel like I'm doing what I was born to do. My life has always centered around organizing sport. It's always centered around that. As a kid, I can remember, organizing the Olympic Games, and putting a pole between two trees and jumping over it and having a pile of leaves there so I could land, and only to find out that those leaves are not that soft. But so my life has kind of always been around organizing sport. I was a weird kid. I have to be honest. I was a weird kid. So like a lot of people have, they put up a basketball court in their backyard. Well, I put up a full court basketball court in my backyard and would invite people from all over the neighborhood to come and play full court basketball. I put a football field in my backyard, but I lined the fields so that you could tell when you got a first down. Not many kids were doing that then, but I didn't realize that would lead to, there was a career that would lead to. I was just doing it because that's just what I did as a kid. And then, but how I got to being a professor is, sometimes things happen in life where you have to, take a look and reflect on where things are going. And I was an athletic director and living my best life. And I don't know if you guys have watched the Spider-Man movies. I don't know if you're Spider-Man fans, but it says, with great power comes great responsibility. But the backstory of Spider-Man and how his Uncle Ben got killed. Well, I had a tragedy in my life that really led to me becoming a professor. I was enjoying being an athletic director, working 12 to 15 hours a day and loving every moment of it, but not spending any time with my family, particularly my mother, who was my living parent at the time. And, she would always say things like, let's take a trip to Texas, something that simple. I've been to Texas so many times, but you always think with your parents that you just have time to do those things, And so one day, for no reason, she passed away at young age of 56, and we never got a chance to go to Texas. And so it was at that moment that, I had to reflect and say, do I want to continue working, these long hours, although I enjoyed it, but I never got to see my family. And it just so happened that for the previous 3 years, the dean at the University of Central Florida had been recruiting me and asking me to come and help them start a program in sport leadership. And two previous years, I had turned them down. And so the third year, I kind of said, well, let me take a look at it. What is it? And when she told me that, well, you'd be a college professor. And I said, what does a college professor do? And say, well, you get to talk about your experience in sport. And, I had to do a double take, and there's a job where you can talk about sport. That's a job. And so I had to take a look at it. And then, when I asked, well, where is the University of Central Florida? And she said, Orlando. I really heard Walt Disney World. That's what I heard. So, and then, and so the rest was history. That's how I became a professor.
Sure.
Fantastic story. I'm glad that you said that you were a weird child as well, because that gives me comfort, because I was weird as well. So you've been an athletic director and coach at the college level. Talk to us a little bit about this role, and what did you enjoy most about it?
Well, again, when my life has always seemed to center around organizing sport. And so, I started out really early as a young coach in basketball. And one of the things I noticed very quickly was all my friends, and I still have friends who I started out with, they're still in coaching, but they seem to be changing jobs like every 2 to 3 years. And so I started asking questions. Well, why don't you just stay somewhere? And what I found out was that if the head coach got fired, the assistant coaches would get fired. I didn't think that was fair. So I said, well, I don't know if I want to coach, because I don't want to change jobs every few years if it has nothing to do with me, just because that person gets fired. And so I said to myself, well, who hires the coach? And they said, the athletic director. And I said, well, that's what I want to do. And so I got into, I became an athletic director. And the reason I did that was because I didn't want to have to change jobs every 2 to 3 years. And when I found out what an athletic director does, organize sports between other teams, I said, hey, you can do that and make money, because I did that as a kid. As a kid, I literally would during school, I would tell other kids from other neighborhoods, hey, let's play, whether it's football or basketball, meet me and my neighborhood at the school on Saturday, and we will play against your neighborhood. That's where it all began. And then so, when I became an athletic director, I felt like life had come full circle for me. And now I can literally spend my life just organizing games and then going to games. It didn't get any better than that. And, and I loved it. I was a big fish in a small pond. So, I was working at a small school, but I was heavily involved on the national level and the local level with athletic directors that were some of the biggest athletic directors in the world. So it was common for me to see, like, the current athletic director at Ohio State. We would serve on committees together in the National Athletic Directors Organization, NACDA. And I was on all of those executive committees. And so I was literally flying to, Florida for meetings, flying to the West Coast. It was the best lifestyle. It was great. I was living my dream.
Dr. Mumford, you've done quite a few different public speaking engagements and consulting roles in the past. What would you advise to people that are looking to do something similar?
I would say spend time learning your craft, and become an expert at something. I saw something one time that said, if you write about something, like publish an article about something 5 times, then you're considered an expert on that subject. So if you look back at my career, I started writing about leadership and getting it published in athletic director magazines back in the 90s. And so that's one thing I would say. Another thing I'd say is be a problem solver. Like, leaders are people that solve problems. And that's what people are looking for. There are enough problems in the world, but are you someone that can solve problems? So I've written about leadership for years. Even my latest book is on leadership. And I even taught leadership at Walt Disney World. So, I think that But I think that the thing that ties that together is just become an expert on something.
Great advice. Great advice. We all have a soft spot in our heart for charitable organizations, and you actually started your own charitable organization called the Good Prize. Tell us a little bit about it and how it came about, and what's the meaning behind it?
Well, we were having a sidebar conversation earlier about just, some of the bad things that are going on, and especially since COVID-19. But it really started from a desire for me to kind of combat that. There's so many, if you look at what's going on around us, there seem to be so many bad things, so many negative things that, you turn on TV and you're bombarded with all of these bad things that are happening. So it's just me just trying to make a difference in the world, just a small difference. But how could I inspire, people to do good things? Just if I could do something to inspire small acts of good, then that's how it all started as an idea. And then, coming up with the idea and I kind of looked at what are some of the best such prizes, because in my future life, I want to be like Bill Gates. Like that's my future dream life. I want to be like Bill Gates and just help people if I can. And so, but that's how the idea came about. And then most recently, I was fortunate enough to form a partnership with the United Way. And so we are looking to really launch this, this winter or fall pretty soon. And really excited about it. Really excited about it. So keep your eye on the Good Prize.
All right.
That's
awesome. We've already talked a little bit. You mentioned that you've published and written books. We know you've done that. You've been a keynote speaker. You spoke at events, taught on leadership. We all know that a good boss can make all the difference in the world, and a bad boss can cause people to leave jobs, which is critical. So tell us a little bit about what you think some of the common characteristics that some of the best and most successful leaders all share in common.
Well, after studying this, for so long, I've kind of noticed a trend. And you were so right when you said, you pointed out the difference between a good leader and a bad leader. A good leader really recognizes that it's the people that power the organization. They're what make it go. And so a good leader focuses on the people. And so I've come up with, I've noticed 3 things that really lend to great leadership, not just good, but great leadership. The way, the mission, and the score. So a great leader shows people the way. All people, all organizations are constantly trying to get from here to there. There is usually what success looks like. But a great leader shows people the way. They show them how to get there. And that usually involves having some kind of compelling vision that people want to follow, but then coming up with a plan that shows them specifically, if we do these things, that will get us there. So great leaders show them the way. Second thing is the mission. Great leaders connect everybody to the mission. In other words, they show everybody in the organization how what they do matters. I can't tell you how many times when I've consulted, I've talked to people and they had no idea how what they did was connected to the larger mission of the organization. But great leaders do that. They connect you no matter what role you have in the organization. They show how what you do matters. When I worked at Walt Disney World, for example, I think they did an excellent job of that. No matter what position you had, even if you were, a vendor for an ice cream truck, you knew that, there were certain expectations and how those expectations could influence customer satisfaction and help people come back to the parks. You knew that, you were trained to know that. The last is you have to keep score. People have to know how they're performing. And in sport, we just naturally do a great job at keeping score. We have stats for everything. I just watched Moneyball again, earlier this past week. But in sports, we keep stats for everything. Unfortunately, a lot of organizations don't keep score, and people have no idea how they're really performing and how that performance rolls up to, the performance of the organization. So it's those three things: the way, the mission, the score, what makes for great leadership.
That is fantastic. The way, the mission, the score. I love that. As the director of sport management at CMU, tell us why someone looking to work in sports should attend CMU and your program.
Well, this is where they say it's not bragging if it's true, right? It's not bragging, Art, if it's true.
That's true.
And so, one of the things that I think you should look to in any sport management program is, can you get there from here? So in other words, if I'm a prospective student, I'm looking at, well, what kind of job possibilities do I have by coming to your program? And I can say with absolute fact that our students have jobs in every sector of sport. And I can literally call somebody in the NBA, the NFL, Major League Baseball, the NHL, the Olympics, colleges across the country, you name it, because I've had them in my classes. And so I think that's a huge selling point. We were one of the first accredited programs in the country. And our accreditation is based on, sport management excellence. That's what it says. And so, but I think that, our track record of success and, students' ability to be able to get into sport by coming here is a phenomenal asset. I think the immersion that we provide, if you're a student here, a lot of times students take it for granted. They can work with our Division I athletic program and they can get real life experience. They can, if they want to work in events, they can go and work in and I'll go to a sporting event, football, basketball game. Our students will be leading in some of those areas, setting up events, marketing, whatever their desire is, getting that experience while they're here. I've been at other places where that's just not true. They have such big program, so many staff members, students, if they're anything, they wind up just being gophers, but they don't get real experience. Now, I've had friends that have gone to sport management programs like Florida State because of the name, and they wound up not really getting any experience. They were like gophers, but our students, I know that when you come through our program, you are prepared, you have experience, and that's what employers tell us and tell me about the people that graduate from our program, that, man, it's something special about, a Chippewa. I just hear it time and time again, and then we do something called experiential learning, where we're a very hands-on program to make sure you learn it. We have a great, I think a great asset is our internship program allows students to do their internship anywhere in the world that they would like to do it. We don't limit them. We try to find out what do you want to do? And if a student says, well, I want to work in Utah in sport, this is a real example, then we find a way to get them an internship in sport in Utah. I mean, I've actually had to call in favors for a kid because he had fond memories growing up as a kid and taking vacations in Utah. And somehow he, equated that to, I'd like to work in sports in Utah. That was one of my harder ones too, but I delivered on it. But I think our track record of success and the kind of experience you get here, and where, the pipeline that our alumni are developing. We can see now that in every sector of sport, there's a Chippewa touching that. And at a relatively young age too. You talked about the Lansing Lugnuts and Tyler Parsons. I mean, this guy was a GM. He's already been a GM for several years.
He certainly is doing some great things, and he's making the Central Michigan Chippewas very proud. That's for sure. Dr. Mumford, real quick here, we'll wrap it up with this last question. What are a couple words of wisdom that you could give to people that are looking to work in the sports industry? Obviously, it's a very challenging industry to get in and stick with, very competitive. What's a couple things you'd say?
Well, a couple things. So really quick, a couple things is one, I think the two most important things are things that you control, your attitude and your effort. I think you have to, have an all-in attitude and give an all-out effort. There are going to be times that it's going to be a grind. It's going to be grueling. You're not going to like everything about it. If you thought that you wanted to get in sports because you're a fan of sport, that's not a good reason. But attitude and effort, and never let someone outwork you. Never let someone outwork you. If those are some keys to success. If your boss asks you to do A, then do A, B, C, and D. That helps you stand out. So that's some advice. And then the other piece of advice I would give is the importance of networking, and the importance of networking before you need something. And those are not just my thoughts. I actually was listening to the Tips for Chips podcast, and an alum said that, which I think is so true. You often hear, it's not just what you know, but who you know, and then also, but who knows you. So just the importance and the power of building a network, because a lot of times opportunities happen because someone knows someone. So that's the advice I would give.
Awesome. Dr. Mumford, this has all been fantastic information that you shared with us. You mentioned so many important things that I thought, just a couple of things to wrap it up with. You said, pursue your passion, do what you're meant to do. I think that is so critical. My mother has always told me that, and I know that's a big Central Michigan motto. The way, the mission, the score with leadership, so huge, so important. You mentioned too that you're looking to make a small difference and be like Bill Gates and just make a difference at some point. I will say that from my experience at Central Michigan, you've already made a difference. You've made a difference in my life. You believed in me. You challenged me. You held me accountable, and you always encouraged me. So I know that you're making a difference in a lot of students' lives at Central Michigan and a lot of other people as well. And never let somebody outwork you. You just mentioned that right there. Sports is a tough competitive industry to get into. My dad always told me, never let somebody outwork you, because that's all based on effort. And I love that. So all fantastic stuff that you shared with us. We thank you for coming on with us. We'll leave it with this. This is your most recent book that you published. So I just started reading it. I'm looking forward to getting through the whole thing, but Invest talks about good leaders. Looking forward to finishing that. But thank you so much, Dr. Mumford. You were fantastic today.
Thank you.
And thank you too again. It's been a great honor. And it doesn't get any better when you see the student become the teacher. And Al, I see that. I see his growth, his development, and now I'm talking to him. So that's, of all the things that I do, I think that's the thing that I enjoy the most, seeing things come, that full circle where students leave here and go out and then start pursuing their dreams and their goals. I've pursued mine, and it's landed me in a great place, but then to be in some small way able to help other people to do that same thing and start that journey, just so fulfilling. And so I thank both of you again for this opportunity to speak with you today.
Thank you, Dr. Mumford. Appreciate it. And fire up, Chips.
Fire up.